I want you to do something for me. Take a look at the glass of water that you might be drinking right now.
Or, maybe it's just the water bottle sitting on your desk.
Yeah, exactly. Take a look at it. Because it seems completely ordinary, right? I mean, it is quite literally the most mundane, everyday substance you interact with.
Right.
But what if adding a simple effervescent tablet to that seemingly ordinary water could, well, completely fundamentally alter how your body ages?
It is wild to think about.
Right. What if it could actually change how you recover from a physical injury, or even how your entire system manages inflammation on this microscopic level?
Well, it sounds almost like science fiction when you frame it that way. I mean, we are so conditioned to think of water merely as a hydration delivery mechanism.
Yeah, you drink it so you don't pass out from dehydration.
Exactly. So the idea that you could alter its core composition to actively, measurably intervene in biological aging and trauma recovery, it's a massive paradigm shift. It really changes how we view daily maintenance.
And that is exactly our mission for today's deep dive. We are jumping headfirst into the fascinating and honestly heavily debated world of hydrogen-rich water.
Heavily debated is definitely the right phrase.
Oh, for sure. So we are going to explore the exact mechanisms of how molecular hydrogen interacts with the human body based on our source material today. And we are not just talking broad strokes or, wellness buzzwords here.
No, not at all.
We are targeting the microscopic pathways that you and I rely on the most just to function every single day.
Which is crucial, right? Because this is a topic where context and scale are literally everything.
Yeah.
To understand why this matters, we have to start with the fundamental nature of the element itself.
Right.
Hydrogen is the lightest element on Earth.
Wow.
Yeah, in fact, it is the most abundant element in the entire universe.
Yeah.
I mean, it is everywhere.
Right, it's fundamental.
Exactly. And because it is so fundamentally tiny and light, it possesses some truly unique physiological properties that the scientific community is, well, they're only just beginning to fully appreciate.
Especially when it comes to tackling things like deep-seated inflammation and oxidative stress.
Precisely.
Now, I have to be honest here. I have genuine excitement about this, but I also have a very healthy dose of skepticism.
Which you should.
Yeah, because, you see wellness trends blow up on social media all the time.
Oh, constantly.
And there are prominent pundits out there who claim that dissolving hydrogen gas in water has absolutely no biological effect on the human body whatsoever.
Right, they argue it just passes right through you.
Exactly. They call it just another overpriced fad. So my goal for our conversation today is to, separate the hype from the hard science.
Yeah.
We need to impartially figure out if this is a genuine biological breakthrough or not.
Absolutely.
And to do that, we really need to map out the actual battlefield inside the body where all of this supposedly takes place.
The microbattlefield.
Right, the microbattlefield. And as I was looking through our research for today, there was a specific fact about this internal battlefield that completely stopped me in my tracks.
The 70% figure.
Yes. When we think of human circulation, we instinctively think of the heart pumping blood through these massive hose-like arteries and veins,
Right, we feel our pulse.
Yeah.
We think about blood pressure cuffs and major vessels.
Exactly. But the reality is that more than 70% of human circulation is not conducted by the heart's heavy pumping action through those major pathways.
It's actually microvascular.
Yeah, 70% of our entire circulatory system is microvascular.
It really reorients how you think about your own anatomy, doesn't it?
Totally.
Because we spend so much time, and honestly, the medical field spends billions of dollars focusing on cardiovascular health in terms of the macro.
The big stuff.
Yeah, the heart muscle itself, the major arteries like the aorta, the sheer pressure pushing blood out to the limbs. But that vascular highway system makes up only about 30% of the actual network.
That is just crazy to me.
The vast majority, that other 70%, is made up of these incredibly intricate branching networks of capillaries.
So we really need to give people a sense of the sheer scale here, because when we say tiny capillaries, I mean, how microscopic are we actually talking?
They are almost unfathomably small. These capillaries are frequently smaller in diameter than a single human hair.
Wow.
Yeah, they are so incredibly narrow that your red blood cells actually have to deform their shape slightly just to pass through them.
Wait, they have to physically squish themselves?
Yes, they squish down and go through single file, one by one. They line up like cars at a toll booth.
That's a great visual.
And that tiny microscopic toll booth is where the magic happens. That is where the crucial exchange of gases and nutrients with your tissues actually takes
I'm
place.
right.
It is where oxygen is handed off to a muscle cell and where metabolic waste gases are picked up to be carried away back to the lungs.
So it's this highly delicate single-file cellular highway. Okay, so think of your heart and your major arteries as the massive interstate highways of your body. They are huge, they handle massive volumes of high-speed traffic, and naturally, they get all the funding, all the attention, and the medical focus.
I like where you're going with this.
But 70% of your actual biological delivery network relies on tiny one-lane dirt roads.
That is a perfect analogy.
Right, because if a tree falls on the interstate, traffic slows down, sure, but you can route cars around it. The lanes are wide enough.
Right, you just switch lanes.
But if a massive boulder falls on a one-lane dirt road way out in the wilderness, the delivery stops entirely. The supply truck is just stuck.
And that perfectly illustrates the primary vulnerability of this 70% microvascular system.
Because they're so small.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Because these vessels are so microscopic, they are incredibly susceptible to even the absolute slightest physical disruption. Take vasoconstriction, for example.
Which is just the narrowing of a blood vessel, right?
Yes. In your major femoral artery, a tiny bit of narrowing might not stop the overall flow. The pressure just adjusts.
Right.
But in a capillary where blood cells are already physically scraping the walls to squeeze through single file,
Even a microscopic amount of vasoconstriction can just trap the cells.
completely, that causes massive back pressure in the surrounding system, effectively starving the tissue downstream.
So what's actually causing these one-lane dirt roads to get blocked in the first place? I mean, when we talk about heart disease, we usually talk about cholesterol plaques. Is that what's clogging up these tiny capillaries?
Well, cholesterol is certainly a factor in the macro system, but in the microvasculature, we're often looking at different culprits that trigger localized inflammation.
Like what?
A major one is an amino acid called homocysteine.
Homocysteine.
Yeah, it is naturally found in the body. It's actually a byproduct of metabolizing protein. However, when levels of homocysteine rise too high in the blood, which can happen due to, poor diet, stress, or even genetic factors, it acts almost like sandpaper on the lining of your blood vessels.
Wait, really? It physically irritates the vessel walls.
Exactly. It damages the delicate endothelial lining of these tiny capillaries.
Ouch.
Right. And what does the body do when it detects damage?
It triggers an inflammatory response.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
tissue swells. And that swelling causes the exact vasoconstriction we were just talking about.
It narrows those tiny pathways.
It does. It drives up the local pressure. And suddenly you have a microscopic traffic jam.
Wow.
And because we are talking about areas of the body that are literally buried deep within tissues, muscles, and organs, these highly inflamed micro areas are incredibly difficult to reach with standard large molecule pharmaceutical therapies.
Which raises a massive logistical problem.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, if this system is so tiny and so fragile and so prone to getting walled off by its own inflammatory swelling, how can anything we consume actually get in there to fix it?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right, because if I swallow an anti-inflammatory pill and that active ingredient has to travel down a one-lane dirt road that is currently blocked by a massive inflammatory traffic jam, doesn't the medicine just get stuck behind the jam too?
Logically, yes. Many larger molecular compounds struggle to penetrate deep into heavily inflamed, constricted microtissue.
That makes total sense.
And that logistical problem leads us directly to the unique physiological value of molecular hydrogen. This is exactly why hydrogen is uniquely qualified to travel down those blocked one-lane dirt roads.
Because it's so small.
Exactly. Remember the foundation we said earlier. Hydrogen is the lightest, physically smallest element on the periodic table.
Right.
It is so infinitesimally small that it completely ignores the traffic jam. It can literally diffuse through the cell walls themselves, bypassing the blocked pathways where larger pharmaceutical molecules simply cannot penetrate.
Okay, here is where the biology gets super fascinating for me. Let's say this tiny element successfully diffuses through the cell walls and slips past the roadblock. What is it actually doing once it gets inside the inflamed tissue? We know it acts as a powerful antioxidant and reduces inflammation, but I really want to understand the how.
The mechanism.
Yeah, what is the actual chemical warfare happening inside our cells?
Well, to understand the mechanism of action, we have to talk about what oxidation actually is on an atomic level.
Okay.
We hear the term oxidative stress or free radicals constantly in health circles, but rarely is it actually explained.
So true.
In your body, your cells are constantly generating energy. The byproduct of that energy generation is a reactive oxygen species,
Hmm.
which is often called a free radical.
And a free radical is essentially an unstable molecule, right?
Yes, specifically if a molecule that is missing an electron. It is
Yeah.
atomically unbalanced.
Got it.
Because the laws of physics dictate that it absolutely wants to be balanced, this free radical becomes violently reactive.
Like it just starts attacking things.
Yeah, pretty much. It bounces around the inside of your cell, desperately looking for an electron to steal. It will rip an electron off of your cell membrane, off of your proteins, or even off of your DNA.
Oh, wow. So it's essentially molecular vandalism. It's stealing parts from healthy structures just to stabilize itself.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. And when
Hmm.
it rips that electron away, it damages the healthy cell.
Right.
That damage triggers the cellular alarms, which causes the exact inflammation we were just talking about.
The swelling and the traffic jam.
Yes. This process of stealing electrons and degrading tissue is oxidation. It is quite literally the biological equivalent of rust forming on iron.
So if oxidation is biological rust eating away at our cellular machinery, how does molecular hydrogen act as the rust remover?
It comes down to basic chemistry, really.
Okay.
Molecular hydrogen, which is H22 hydrogen atoms bonded together,
Yeah.
is introduced into this chaotic resting environment.
Right.
Well, H2 has electrons to spare. Yeah. When it encounters one of these highly destructive, unstable oxygen radicals, let's just represent it as O, the molecular hydrogen willingly donates its electrons.
It just gives them away.
It does. It bonds with the free radical.
Yeah.
And if you take H2 and bond it with O, what do you get?
H2O, water.
Exactly. It neutralizes the dangerous tissue-destroying radical and chemically converts it into pure, harmless water.
Which the cell simply flushes away.
Precisely. It selectively scavenges the absolute most harmful reactive oxygen species and neutralizes them without producing any toxic byproducts.
That is incredible. So it doesn't just block the damage, it physically transforms the destructive element into something beneficial.
Yeah.
And because it is the smallest element in the universe, it can do this deep inside the brain, inside microscopic blood vessels, and inside tissues that are completely blocked off to larger molecules.
The data strongly suggests this,
Mhm.
and the research points to secondary effects that are just as vital, honestly.
Like what?
Well, it isn't just neutralizing the rust. It is also down-regulating pro-inflammatory cytokines.
Okay, let's define cytokines for the listener. Are those the cellular alarms you mentioned earlier?
Yes, exactly. Cytokines are essentially signaling proteins circulating in your blood.
Okay.
When tissue is damaged, these proteins act as messengers, telling the immune system to rush to the area, ramp up the heat, and create swelling.
So they call in the ambulances.
Right. But sometimes that alarm system gets stuck in the on position, leading to chronic inflammation.
Ah.
Hydrogen essentially acts as a volume dial. It turns down the screeching alarm of those pro-inflammatory cytokines, allowing the tissue to calm down.
That's fascinating.
And furthermore, the data shows hydrogen operates on anti-apoptotic pathways.
Okay, apoptosis. That's a term you usually only hear in, like, advanced biology classes. Let's make sure we clearly define what that means in this context.
Sure. Apoptosis is the strict biological process of programmed cell death.
Cell suicide.
Essentially, yes. Under normal circumstances, it is actually a very healthy thing. Yet when a cell becomes old or irreparably damaged, it activates the self-destruct sequence so it doesn't become cancerous or necrotic.
Okay, that makes sense. It takes itself out for the greater good.
Exactly. However, when your tissues are drowning in excessive oxidative stress and inflammation, perfectly healthy cells get overwhelmed and they prematurely trigger their own apoptosis.
Oh, no. So they kill themselves out of stress.
They do. Anti-apoptotic pathways are the body's internal mechanisms to protect cells from hitting that premature self-destruct button.
And hydrogen helps with this.
Yes. Hydrogen appears to actively support and strengthen these protective shields, keeping healthy cells alive longer under duress.
So it's a three-pronged defense, really. It donates electrons to neutralize the rust, it turns down the volume on the inflammation alarms, and it reinforces the protective shields around cells so they don't prematurely self-destruct.
That's a great summary.
But I have to bring us back to the skeptics for a minute.
Of course.
There are very vocal critics who look at hydrogen water and say, there's zero clinical evidence, it's just bubbly water. Are we just theorizing based on test tubes, or is there real human data?
The skepticism usually comes from a lack of familiarity with the sheer volume of the literature, honestly.
Yeah,
We aren't theorizing at all. There are roughly 1,335 published peer-reviewed studies available right now on specialized databases like hydrogenstudies.com.
Over 1,000?
Over 1,300.
Hmm?
We are not talking about a handful of fringe blogs or like company-sponsored pamphlets. We are talking about a massive global body of research exploring animal models, human inhalation therapies, and drinking hydrogen-rich water.
Wow. What kind of conditions are they actually studying in these trials?
They are looking at serious systemic inflammatory conditions. Things like osteoarthritis, where the cartilage in joints is degrading due to inflammation.
Okay.
They are studying its effects on severe neurodegenerative diseases, where oxidative stress is actively destroying brain tissue.
That's huge.
There are even studies on acute critical care conditions like sepsis, examining how introducing hydrogen might alleviate massive whole-body tissue damage and improve patient survival rates.
Having over 1,300 published studies completely changes the narrative. I mean, it moves the conversation from a speculative wellness trend to a heavily researched biological intervention.
It absolutely does.
But you and I both know that animal models and test tube chemistry are one thing. To truly understand if this works, we need to see what happens when it is tested on actual humans.
Right.
Specifically, humans who have accumulated decades of this biological rest. And that leads us to a landmark piece of research from 2021 that really anchors our deep dive today.
It is a phenomenal piece of evidence. It was published in the Journal of Experimental Gerontology in November of 2021.
Awesome.
And when we look at clinical research, the methodology is everything. We have to know how they tested this to know if we can actually trust the results.
Right. Like, was this just a survey where they asked people, hey, do you feel younger today? Or was it rigorous?
It was incredibly rigorous. It was a 6-month, double-blind, peer-reviewed, randomized pilot trial.
Okay, let's quickly define double-blind for anyone not steeped in research terminology.
Sure. A double-blind study means that neither the participants taking the water nor the researchers measuring the results knew who was getting the real hydrogen water and who was getting the placebo.
Which, in this case, was just regular water.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This completely removes the placebo effect and researcher bias. It is the gold standard for proving a biological effect.
And the participants were all men and women aged 70 and older.
Yes.
So you have a group of individuals who, by definition, have highly mature biological systems with significant accumulations of oxidative stress.
Decades of rust.
Right. So one group drinks hydrogen gas-infused water daily for 6 months. The other drinks plain water. And the list of physical and chemical changes they measured is staggering. Where do we even start?
Let's start at the very foundation of genetics. The researchers measured a marker called TET2. Yeah. In biological terms, TET2 is a primary indicator for methylation activity in the body.
Okay, methylation is another one of those terms that gets thrown around in longevity podcasts all the time.
It does.
But what does it actually mean for a 70-year-old?
Well, methylation is a fundamental biochemical process that happens billions of times a second in every cell of your body.
Billions.
Billions. Think of your DNA as a massive library of blueprints.
Okay.
Just having the blueprints isn't enough, right? Your body needs to know which ones to open and read and which ones to keep closed.
Makes sense.
Methylation is the biological equivalent of a librarian placing a sticky note on a specific blueprint, telling the cell, turn this gene on or turn this gene off.
So it's the control mechanism for genetic expression.
Precisely. It repairs DNA, it regulates hormones, and it detoxifies chemicals.
Wow.
But as we age, our methylation librarian gets tired.
The sticky notes start falling off.
Exactly. The sticky notes get placed on the wrong genes, or they fall off entirely. The process becomes highly dysregulated, which is a primary driver of aging and disease.
I see.
By measuring TT2, the researchers were directly observing this librarian's efficiency.
Okay, and what did they find?
They saw a statistically significant increase in TT2 activity in the group drinking hydrogen water.
Oh, really?
Yeah. This means they were observing a functional improvement in genetic regulation at the most fundamental level.
That alone is massive. But they didn't just stop at blood markers, right? They actively looked at brain chemistry, specifically noting increased levels of brain choline and NAA in the left frontal gray matter.
This finding is particularly striking to me.
Why is that?
Well, the left frontal lobe of the brain is the command center for complex cognitive functions.
Like what?
Executive decision-making, working memory, and language processing. And NAA, which stands for N-acetylaspartate, is a chemical compound produced almost exclusively by the mitochondria inside healthy neurons.
So if NAA levels are high, it means the neurons in that specific area are highly energized and functioning optimally.
Yes, it is a universally recognized marker for neuronal viability.
Okay.
If you see a drop in NAA, you are looking at brain tissue degradation. But in this trial, after 6 months of drinking hydrogen water, the 70-plus-year-old subjects showed increased NAA in that critical left frontal lobe.
Which proves the point we made earlier.
Exactly.
The hydrogen gas is so small that it is effortlessly crossing the blood-brain barrier, navigating the microscopic capillary dirt roads of the brain, scavenging the rust, and allowing those neurons to generate more energy.
That's exactly what's happened.
That is what. But did they measure anything that the subjects could actually feel? I mean, blood markers and brain scans are great, but did their daily lives improve?
They absolutely did. The study measured functional physical metrics, most notably the chair stand test,
The chair stand test.
also known as sit-stand performance.
Which sounds incredibly simple. You literally just stand up from a chair and sit back down. Why is that scientifically relevant?
It sounds simple to a 20-year-old, sure. But in gerontology, the chair stand test is one of the most highly validated clinical predictors of overall longevity, lower extremity strength, and fall risk.
Oh, I see.
The ability to propel your own body weight upward against gravity requires a complex coordination of neuromuscular pathways, fast-twitch muscle fibers, and shear strengths.
And as we lose muscle mass in our 70s and 80s, that specific action becomes really difficult.
Right. And the group drinking the hydrogen water showed significant improvements in their chair stand performance compared to the placebo group.
So they were functionally stronger.
Yes. This indicates real, functional rejuvenation of muscle tissue and motor control.
That's amazing.
And it wasn't just that. The researchers also recorded meaningful reductions in resting blood pressure, improvements in body composition, better reported sleep quality, and even measured improvements in facial skin features.
Facial skin features,
Yeah.
really.
All of these point to a systemic, whole-body reduction in oxidative stress.
We have to talk about the final biomarker they measured, because it is arguably the most famous metric in the entire anti-aging conversation.
Telomeres.
Yes, telomeres. They found that drinking this water actually lengthened the subject's telomeres.
Yes, and the implications of that cannot be overstated.
A lot of people have heard the classic analogy where telomeres are described as the little plastic tips at the end of your shoelaces that keep the laces from fraying.
Right, the aglets.
Yeah. But I've always found that a bit hard to visualize biologically. I actually prefer to think of your DNA like a highly sensitive, classic VHS tape.
The VHS tape analogy is actually much more accurate to the cellular mechanism, I think.
Right, so imagine your genetic code is the movie recorded on the VHS tape.
Okay.
But at the very beginning and the very end of the tape, there's a long stretch of blank black leader tape.
Right.
That blank tape is your telomere. Every single time your cell divides and replicates itself, essentially every time you hit play and run that tape through the VCR, the machine eats a tiny little bit of that blank leader tape.
Which is perfectly fine initially because the tape is blank. It doesn't contain any critical movie footage.
Exactly. But after decades of cellular replication, after thousands of plays, that blank tape gets completely chewed up.
And eventually.
Eventually, the VCR starts eating into the actual movie. It starts damaging the real genetic code. And when that happens, the cell can no longer divide safely. It becomes a zombie cell, or it just dies entirely.
Telomere shortening is considered one of the ultimate biological clocks. It is the primary hallmark of aging. Once they are gone, your cells lose their ability to renew.
And what this double-blind gold standard 2021 study showed is that introducing molecular hydrogen for 6 months didn't just slow down the VCR from eating the tape.
Right.
It actually regenerated the blank tape. It lengthened the telomeres in a population over the age of 70. I mean, it is literally rewinding a measurable biological clock.
It is profound. And importantly, they contextualized this pilot trial with a broader systemic review.
What did they find in the review?
Well, the researchers looked at 25 additional peer-reviewed articles covering various methods of introducing hydrogen into the body.
Okay.
Their overarching conclusion was that daily consumption of hydrogen-rich water over a 6-month period was entirely harmless to this elderly population, while simultaneously exerting all of these highly favorable effects on brain metabolism, pain reduction, and core aging factors.
It makes complete physiological sense when you strip away all the complexity.
It does.
I mean, as you pointed out earlier, what are we mostly made of? Water. And what is water mostly made of? Hydrogen.
Exactly.
So we aren't introducing some foreign synthetic pharmaceutical chemical that the liver has to aggressively detoxify. We are introducing the most basic building block of our own biology, just in a free molecular gas form, so it can act as a scavenger.
We are just giving the body an abundance of the exact tool it already knows how to use.
Okay, so the evidence clearly points to a profound systemic effect on older populations who are dealing with decades of accumulated biological rust. But I want to pivot here because our research shifts focus dramatically at this point.
Yes, it does.
What happens if you take this exact same microscopic molecule and apply it not to chronic aging, but to sudden, acute physical trauma in young, healthy people?
This is where we examine sports medicine and acute injury recovery. And the findings here actively challenge decades of standard, universally accepted medical advice.
We are talking about the RICE protocol.
Yes.
Rest, ice, compress, and elevate. I have played sports my entire life. I've had RICE drilled into my head since like middle school gym class.
Oh, absolutely.
You twist your ankle playing basketball, and the very first thing the coach does is hand you a massive bag of crushed ice and some athletic tape.
We all have experienced that. It has been the gold standard for acute musculoskeletal injuries for over 40 years.
But the clinical research we are looking at actively contrasted the traditional RICE protocol with a completely different approach.
Soaking the newly injured sprained ankle in a bath of hydrogen-rich water.
Right. And the data claims that the hydrogen soaking significantly improved recovery outcomes, tissue repair, and pain reduction compared to traditional icing.
Which is a complete paradigm shift.
I really have to push back here, or at least play devil's advocate, because my brain is struggling to accept this.
Go for it.
If I roll my ankle, within 10 minutes, it is throbbing with heat and it is physically swelling up. The reason we apply ice is because it immediately stops the swelling and numbs the pain.
Right.
If I don't put ice on a sprained ankle, won't it just swell to the size of a grapefruit and cause absolute agony?
That is the exact fear that drives the RICE protocol,
Right.
and your description of the symptoms is highly accurate.
So why not ice it?
Well, we have to look at why those symptoms are happening. Why does the ankle get hot? Why does it swell and throb?
Because it's damaged.
Yes, but the swelling is not the injury itself. The swelling is the body's ambulance arriving at the scene. When you tear ligaments in your ankle, millions of cells are instantly destroyed. The body recognizes this massive damage and immediately dilates the blood vessels leading to the area.
Okay.
It flushes the tissue with fluid packed with white blood cells, nutrient-rich plasma, and macrophages.
Macrophages.
Those are cells that eat dead tissue. That rush of fluid is what causes the throbbing and the swelling.
So the swelling is actually the repair crew showing up to fix the torn ligament.
Exactly. Now, what happens when you forcefully apply a bag of freezing ice to that exact spot?
The cold causes extreme vasoconstriction. The blood vessels shrink.
They don't just shrink, they practically slam shut.
Right.
You are causing profound forced vasoconstriction in the microvascular network.
Oh, wow.
Going back to our analogy from earlier, an accident has occurred on the one-lane dirt road. There is wreckage everywhere.
Right.
The body dispatches tow trucks and ambulances to clear the wreckage and rebuild the road. And by putting ice on it, you are effectively dropping a massive concrete barricade at the entrance of the road.
I see it now. You stop the swelling, sure, but you also stop the tow trucks from getting in.
You are trapping all of the dead cells, the localized inflammatory factors, and the highly destructive reactive oxygen species right at the site of the injury.
That sounds terrible.
You are halting the clearance of cellular garbage, and you are preventing fresh, oxygenated blood from flowing in to actually begin knitting the tissue back together.
So icing, it might make it feel temporarily numb, but it actually delays the biological healing process?
Yes.
And hydrogen does the exact opposite.
Precisely. Immersing the injured tissue in hydrogen-rich water does not constrict the blood vessels.
It keeps them open.
According to the research, hydrogen accelerates healing by actively maintaining and improving microvascular blood flow. It keeps the dirt road open.
Wow.
It allows the fluid to flow freely, bringing in the necessary repair materials, while its powerful antioxidant properties immediately scavenge and neutralize the massive spike in free radicals generated by the torn tissue.
It is neutralizing the chemical fire while keeping the supply lines open. That is a complete 180-degree shift in how we approach trauma. And the research doesn't just stop at ankles. There is another application detailed here that I found even more fascinating, specifically involving concussions in contact sports.
Yes, concussions represent a unique challenge because the trauma is enclosed within the skull and you're dealing with the blood-brain barrier.
Right. So the researchers looked at athletes who had just suffered a concussion. But instead of drinking the hydrogen water, the athletes placed a compressed elemental hydrogen tablet directly into their buccal fold?
For those unfamiliar with the anatomy, the buccal fold is simply the pocket of tissue between your cheek and your lower gums.
It is where baseball players historically kept chewing tobacco.
Exactly.
Why put the tablet there instead of just swallowing it, though?
The mucosal lining of the buccal fold is extraordinarily highly vascularized. It is packed with capillary beds.
Oh, I see.
When a substance dissolves there, it absorbs directly into the bloodstream almost instantly, completely bypassing the digestive system and the liver's first-pass metabolism.
It's a biological fast track.
It is.
And what the researchers found was that athletes utilizing this buccal fold delivery method immediately following a head trauma showed significantly improved and accelerated recovery phases compared to those who didn't.
If we look at the underlying mechanics we have already established today, this makes perfect logical sense.
How so?
A concussion is, at its core, a violent physical trauma resulting in severe localized inflammation and oxidative stress deep within the delicate microvasculature of the brain tissue.
Right. The brain is bruising and swelling, but it has nowhere to expand because of the skull.
Exactly. And we already know from the gerontology study with the 70-year-olds that molecular hydrogen effortlessly crosses the blood-brain barrier.
Oh, right.
So by introducing a high concentration of hydrogen gas directly into the bloodstream via the cheek, you are rapidly deploying a massive wave of that microscopic rust remover straight up to the brain.
Straight to the source.
It penetrates the highly constricted, inflamed microvessels of the concussed tissue, neutralizing the free radicals and clearing the localized swelling far faster than the body could manage on its own.
It is incredibly compelling how consistent the mechanism of action is.
It really is.
I mean, whether you are a 75-year-old trying to reverse cellular aging and lengthen your telomeres, or a 20-year-old linebacker trying to recover from a violent collision on the field, the underlying biological battle is always the same.
It is always happening in the microscopic dirt roads of the microvasculature.
Exactly. So if this molecule is truly this universally effective, the listener is naturally wondering the same thing I am. How on earth do I actually get my hands on this?
The practical application.
Right. Is this some tightly guarded billionaire biohacker secret that requires a second mortgage?
Not at all. That brings us to the economics and the practical application, which is arguably the most surprising part of the research.
Okay, let's hear it.
There are three main medically documented methods for administering molecular hydrogen.
And those are...
The first is the direct inhalation of concentrated hydrogen gas through a mask or nasal cannula.
Okay.
The second is an intravenous IV infusion of saline that has been supersaturated with hydrogen gas.
Both of which sound highly clinical. You aren't doing an IV drip or hauling around a volatile gas canister at your kitchen table before work.
Right, those are primarily reserved for clinical environments or acute hospital care. The third method, and the one that the research focuses on most heavily for daily preventative use, is simply drinking hydrogen-rich water.
But there has historically been a significant accessibility barrier to this method, right?
There has.
You were talking about the specialized gadgets, because if you search for hydrogen water online, you are immediately bombarded with ads for specialized water bottles.
Oh, they're everywhere.
These electronic devices sit on your counter, you plug them in, and they supposedly use electrolysis to generate hydrogen gas into your drinking water, and they are not cheap. The research notes these devices often run anywhere between $250 and $300.
Which, while perhaps cheaper than installing a hyperbaric oxygen chamber in your garage, is still a very significant financial investment just to upgrade your daily hydration.
Exactly. But the research presents a highly practical, incredibly cost-effective alternative. It refers to it almost as a biological hack.
It's brilliant.
The solution lies in compressed elemental magnesium tablets, specifically formulated as H2 tabs.
The chemistry behind this hack is incredibly elegant and straightforward.
Correct.
You aren't buying pre-bottled hydrogen water because, as we noted, hydrogen is so small it would eventually escape through the plastic.
Right, it would just leak out over time.
Exactly. Instead, you create the reaction yourself.
The economics of this are brilliant. You can purchase a bottle of these specialized elemental magnesium tablets, and the math breaks down to less than $1 a day.
Very affordable.
You fill a standard glass with ordinary water, and you drop one of these small tablets in.
And when that elemental magnesium makes contact with the H2O, an immediate chemical reaction occurs.
What's the reaction?
The equation is Mg plus 2 H2O yields MgOH2 plus H2.
Okay, in plain English.
In plain English, the magnesium reacts with the water to create magnesium hydroxide, and in the process, it liberates free molecular hydrogen gas directly into the liquid.
I have to admit, I laughed out loud when I read the researchers' description of this process. They enthusiastically referred to the resulting glass of water as a hydrogen bomb.
It is a slightly aggressive term, but from a chemical standpoint, it captures the reaction perfectly.
It really does, because it is a highly visceral experience. When you drop that magnesium tablet in, the water physically changes right in front of your eyes.
It does.
It immediately begins to aggressively effervesce. The water actually turns cloudy and milky for a minute or two. And that cloudiness isn't carbonation like a soda. Those are millions of microscopic free hydrogen gas bubbles saturating the water.
And because we established that hydrogen is the smallest element in the physical universe, you have to act fast.
Yeah.
If you leave that highly saturated, cloudy glass of water sitting on your kitchen counter, those tiny hydrogen molecules will literally diffuse right through the physical glass walls of the cup and vanish into the surrounding air within 20 minutes.
Oh, wow. They just escape right through the glass.
Yes. You have to drink it immediately while the concentration is at its absolute peak.
It completely democratizes what could have been a highly elitist health tool. It is not just a $300 gadget for professional athletes and Silicon Valley tech bros. It is a sub-$1 daily routine.
That's very accessible.
You can throw a small bottle of these magnesium tablets in your gym bag or your carry-on luggage and create highly saturated, therapeutic-grade hydrogen water anywhere in the world.
And as we wrap up the discussion on practical application, we must reiterate the safety profile one more time.
Definitely.
This is a critical distinction in the world of biohacking. When you consume this hydrogen bomb water, you are not ingesting a synthetic pharmaceutical compound that your liver has to figure out how to process and clear.
You are not taking a foreign stimulant.
Right.
You are taking the most abundant element in the universe. We are mostly water, and hydrogen makes up 2/3 of every water molecule.
Exactly. Flooding your gastrointestinal tract and your bloodstream with free molecular hydrogen is recognized clinically as highly safe because our mammalian biology is fundamentally designed to coexist with it.
So there's no risk of taking too much.
There is no toxic accumulation. If you drink more than your body can utilize for scavenging rust, you simply exhale the excess gas through your lungs within a few minutes.
That is incredible. Okay, we have covered massive microscopic ground today. Let's try to synthesize this entire journey for the listener.
Let's do it.
We started by exploring the hidden 70% of our circulatory system, those microscopic, fragile, one-lane dirt roads where our cells are forced to travel single file.
Right.
We looked at the biological rust of oxidation, the free radicals violently stealing electrons, and how the resulting inflammation creates barricades on those delicate pathways.
We then examined the rigorous gold standard clinical data demonstrating how introducing a single microscopic element can act as a targeted electron donor.
The rust remover.
Yes. We saw how it measurably improved genetic methylation markers, altered brain chemistry in the frontal lobe, and quite literally regenerated the blank VHS tape of our DNA, lengthening the telomeres in a 70-year-old population over just 6 months.
Then we challenged the very foundation of acute trauma care, questioning the 40-year-old habit of throwing ice on a sprained ankle.
A huge shift.
We realized that freezing the tissue just traps the cellular garbage, whereas a tiny molecule can keep the biological roads open, flushing out the waste and healing a concussed brain faster.
Exactly.
And finally, we discovered that this exact heavily researched mechanism can be accessed not by buying a $300 machine, but by dropping a sub-$1 magnesium tablet into a glass of tap water.
It forces a profound reevaluation of how we approach our health, our recovery, and our aging on the most fundamental cellular level.
It really does. Which leaves us with a final lingering thought to mull over based on everything we have unpacked in this deep dive today.
I'm ready.
We spend so much time, so much energy, and literally billions of dollars in medical research looking for incredibly complex, highly synthetic, patented chemical solutions to solve the problems of aging and physical injury.
We do.
But what if the ultimate key to human longevity isn't about inventing a brand new, wildly complex molecule in a laboratory? What if the most effective intervention is simply flooding our vulnerable, rusting bodies with the absolute most basic, fundamental building block of the entire cosmos?